Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja and today we are going to discuss the sad demise of Shinzo Abe and the impact his personality had on Indo Japan relations. Now we have made certain changes in our segment with respect to what do we need to cover, and in the sense what do we have to cover for prelims and what do we have to cover for mains. All right. So let us first of all have a look at what are the points of discussion that we are going to have. These are the major points of discussion that we are going to go through step by step. And of course, that will profoundly impact your profoundly impact the importance of GS mains paper 2 and 3. From which perspective we will get that as well. So this news piece has been taken, the base has been taken from the explained series of Indian Express, but we have enriched our content with the help of other very important authentic sites as well. So as I said that what do we need to cover for prelims? Prelims focus goes like throughout the segment we will have to make sure that from the perspective of prelims we do go through these particular points, from geography of Japan to quad 2+2 dialogue mechanism that we have. Awards also will be discussed, as in which award was given to Shinzo Abe. Your homework will be to plug the gaps which I leave, because if we are going to get into a lot of detail, then what will happen that the session might go for 30 to 40 minutes that we can't afford. And bullet train Nobusuke Kishi. Nobusuke Kishi was the grandfather, maternal grandfather of Shinzo Abe, and that is why we are going to know about him as well for a little for very brief period. Okay, and Abenomics will also be talked about. Then from the perspective of GS mains paper 2, his personality or his legacy, what impact has it done on India, how relations were molded during his time, how was Shinzo Abe's instrumentality in freeing the Indo-Pacific region, how he countered China, the legacy, and from the perspective of GS mains paper 3, Abenomics and trade relations of India and Japan will be discussed as well. So moving on, if we talk about the geography of Japan, Japan is a group of islands basically, which includes of course the Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island. Then comes Honshu. Okay, this is Honshu with Tokyo as the capital of Japan is present in the island of Honshu. Then comes Shikoku and then Kyushu. So remember the north to south and south to north extent like that, it can be asked. So in the west it has of course the Sea of Japan, in the east North Pacific Ocean, and then Sea of Okhotsk is in the north side. The Sakhalin Island or Sakhalin region is divided by the help of which strait? The La Perouse Strait from the island of Hokkaido. Okay, and then we have Philippine Sea, then East China Sea, Korea Strait that divides the region of Japan from South Korea, like that. So these are the certain things that we have to keep in mind. And remember that whatever parts that are left here, we will discuss it in our News on Map series as well. Moving on, if we talk about Shinzo Abe, he was the former Prime Minister of Japan and he was born in 1954 in Tokyo on September 21. Both his grandfather and great uncle served as the Prime Minister, and of course he worked in when he was studying as a student. After a point of time, he worked in the Kobe Steel in 1979. After that, he went on to become the assistant of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and then he got gradually into politics, then did very well over there, and then in 2007 he was named the party's president and became the Prime Minister of Japan. To which party did he belong? He belonged to LDP, that is the Liberal, right-leaning Liberal. That means it was a rightist party, the Liberal Democratic Party. And the his first stint as a Prime Minister was from 2006 to 2007, then from 2012 until 2020. Okay, so 2 times he served as the Prime Minister. And his policies, his policies ranging from defense to security to economics, these were very profound. They helped Japan reach where it is right now. Of course, the economics part was halted because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but Abenomics did wonders to the Japanese economy. So the most dramatic shift happened in the Japanese military policies in 70 years under his prime ministership. Reinterpretation of Japan's post-war pacifist constitution was done, allowing Japanese troops to engage in overseas combat was also given approval under certain conditions. This was the first time ever after World War II, and a historic, because Japanese Prime Minister was his personality was something like he wanted to maintain good relations with China, but he also wanted to maintain the rules-based order in the region of Indo-Pacific. So a historic phone call was done between him and the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping in 2018. At the same time, he countered China's expansionist policy in the Indo-Pacific. Moving on, if we talk about other things, such as the economic policies, the Abenomics did wonders. What is it? It is a mix of bold quantitative easing should be done and fiscal spending should be done, so in order to generate employment, infrastructural activities, and structural reforms, that means taxation reforms were also taken. So Abenomics is given in Ramesh Singh, the book, standard book Ramesh Singh as well. So you can read it from there as well and do a little research about Abenomics. So this is very important from the perspective of prelims. The longest economic expansionist streak was done under Shinzo Abe. So one thing that we have to keep in mind over here, not only from the perspective of diplomacy, but as an economist, he also did very well. Then, to address the issue of Japan's shrinking labor force, he was very, very mindful of the fact that the women labor were out of the fold. So, he made it sure that womenics, that means economics inclined towards women, was also considered, and it pushed the companies to increase the hiring of women with the help of government policies. So, there were government policies that helped the women to get into the labor force under his prime ministership. Moving on, why was he assassinated? So Tetsuya Yamagami is a 41-year-old man who shot the ex-prime minister of Japan at Nara, Japan, and he denied any political inclinations. He said because he had apprehensions towards the former prime minister Shinzo Abe because of his mother. Why? His mother donated certain amount to an agency which he believed has affiliations with Shinzo Abe, and after that she became bankrupt because of that, and his status can be gauged from the fact that he recently also got retired. He is actually a marine official, marine worker, and after that he went to do some private work. After that he got away from his work, he resigned from his work, and then that's not important from the perspective of the examination. That's just something to build the momentum. So he said that he had certain personal issues. That is what we know until and unless we knew. So what is the global reaction? The global reaction is complete mourning, but not China, of course. China is very happy. China is gleeing, it's ecstatic and whatnot. The social media of China and Chinese officials are very happy. See, for global reaction, we have to know what kind of relations did he have with the countries of the world with respect to USA. USA is a traditional ally, very strong ally of Japan, and personal relations were molded during the Trump era in 2016. So throughout the Trump era, we could see Japan and USA coming together in order to counter China, specifically with respect to Taiwan. North Korea, see, when he had very good relations with Donald Trump and South Korea, they both had hardline policies against North Korea. But when the Donald Trump administration started tipping towards diplomacy with North Korea, Shinzo Abe got sidelined because South Korea and USA, they came together to resolve issues with North Korea. So then he got sidelined. Nevertheless, he wanted to normalize the relations with North Korea that he had. But his priorities were for closure with respect to abduction of families of Japanese citizens in the early 1970s and 80s. So that is why we can see that this is happening. Then comes South Korea. The relations under his prime ministership with respect to Japan and South Korea were not very nice. They turned sour. Why? Major disputes were there in trade and military intelligence deals were scraped. So you see that Korean Peninsula was already you can see it is still tumultuous. But Japanese prime minister, former prime minister, did try very well to ensure that peace exists between them and the Korean Peninsula. Now, with respect to China, he did not want to make it very easy for China to get its teeth into all of the South China Sea, East China Sea. That was one of the things that the former Prime Minister wanted to ensure. So there were strong calls from him with respect to Taiwan. He said that he wanted to ensure that Taiwan remains independent, and that angered China last year. And because of that, what happened? The accusation was done. The Chinese called the Japanese ambassador and said that they were accusing Shinzo Abe of questioning the sovereignty of, and of course, the integrity of China. So that is why relations were sour, and that is why they are very happy with the assassination. Then comes, how did he revive the Indo Japan relations? Now see, Indo Japan relations during his prime ministership were gleaming with hope, and we did do very well with respect to them. In 2006-2007, Shinzo Abe, he visited India and addressed the parliament, okay? And then he gave the speech conference of the two Cs, and that made the beginning of Indo-Pacific prominent possible. And that is why Quad, Quad was kind of, it was the beginning of Quad. Quad is an informal grouping of 4 countries that includes USA, Japan, India and Australia. Okay, so the group of 4 countries, it's an informal, don't get confused, it's an informal, it is not institutionalized, but it's an informal grouping that you can call. It not only restricts itself to security measures, but also beyond security measures, areas of cooperation between the like-minded countries of Indo-Pacific. That started with Shinzo Abe's Conference of the Two Seas speech. Okay, remember that. Then global partnership between Japan and India, it was laid in 2001, but he accelerated the ties in 2012. Also, January 2014, during his first stint, he visited India only once, but during his second stint as a Prime Minister, he came to India 3 times, 2014, 2015 and 17. First Japanese Prime Minister to be chief guest at the Republic Day Parade. Then 2+2 dialogue mechanism, that is a dialogue mechanism between the defense personnel, you can say defense with respect to India, defense minister and external affairs minister, and they come together, Minister of External Affairs, Minister of Defense, they come together to meet their counterparts from another country. That is a security dialogue between India has with Russia, Japan, USA and also Australia. Okay, and then the acquisition and cross-servicing agreement was also signed. That is a military logistics support pact. All right, moving on. If we talk about how he revived the Indo-Japanese relation with respect to Northeast India, he also took care of the Act East Forum. A joint engagement forum was launched in order to launch projects in Northeast India. So China was very unhappy with that. And joint projects were also taken between India and Japan with respect to Maldives and Sri Lanka. Moving on, if we talk about the special relation with Shinzo Abe, there are certain points to be remembered, such as in 2015, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi ji, he took the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to Varanasi, his Lok Sabha seat, to see Ganga Aarti. Then in 2017, Prime Minister of Japan, he visited Ahmedabad to lay the foundation of India's first bullet train. The first bullet train, which is supposed to be, this is written 2023, but this is pre-COVID. But it has been revised to 2026 and 2027 probably. So it will run between these many cities from Gujarat to Maharashtra. Okay, and land acquisition issues and other issues were also there, but finally India will get its first bullet train between 2026 and 2027. The first ever bullet train was run in 1964. I'm just going to show you here with the help of this map. Bear with me a few moments. Yes, from Tokyo to Osaka. Okay, from Tokyo to Osaka in 1964. There was a name of the system with respect to bullet train. Can you tell me in the comment segment what is it? So bullet train is also very important from the perspective of prelims. Remember that, get yourself updated. Then he was also given the Padma Vibhushan, beg your pardon, in 2021. Befittingly, very well deserving, we can say. Interestingly, Mr. Abe's maternal grandfather also shared close ties with India, the Prime Minister Kishi. Here is the picture. In 1957, between 1957 to 1960, he was the Prime Minister of Japan, and here's a picture of him with the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Then Prime Minister chose Japan for his first, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015 chose Japan for his first bilateral visit outside the neighborhood, and also hosted when he went to Japan. Then he was hosted by Shinzo Abe at his ancestral home in Yamanashi. Through the Doklam crisis and the current standoff, Japan did stand aside India. So he made extremely and explicitly clear where his interests lie at. Abe's government convinced the anti-nuclear hawks in Japan to sign the agreement in 2016, because back then India had deals with US and French nuclear firms which were either owned by Japan or had stakes of Japan in them. Okay, moving on. We also need to know about India's relations. Let's talk about the economic relation. Now, Japan has been extending bilateral loans to India since 1958, and Japan has been the largest bilateral donor as well for India. The system through which it happens is the official development assistance. And official development assistance is the reason why we are seeing so many infrastructural activities taking place, specifically bullet train. And fiscal year 2018-19, you see, it was at the historic highest. The official development assistance, the amount was 537.4 billion Japanese yen. So comprehensive economic partnership also took place in 2011, and through this 90% of Japan imports were free from tariff, and 97% of Indian exports were free from tariff, although we have a trade deficit with Japan. Okay. For defense, the joint declaration on security cooperation between Japan and India took place. Then foreign and defense ministerial meeting 2+2 dialogue, plus the annual defense ministerial dialogue, plus Coast Guard to Coast Guard dialogue is also a mechanism. Then on September 9, 2020, the acquisition and cross-servicing agreement, which we have already discussed, the logistic support exchange, that has also been signed. ACSA came into force on July 11, 2021 itself. This agreement was signed in 2020. Then we also have military exercises such as JIMEX, which is a naval exercise, then Shinyu Maitri Air Force and Dharma Guardian for Army. Now, both the countries are also part of G20 and the G4. Do read about G4 as well. This is important for prelims. They are also member countries of the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor for ensuring clean nuclear energy. What are the cultural ties? Now, 6th century AD, Buddhism was introduced to Japan through the Korean Peninsula. Since then, we have very good relations with Japan. Now, Japan and India, they also signed a peace treaty and established diplomatic relation on 28th April in the 1950s. Okay. So, the cultural agreement between Japan and India, it was signed in 1956, and the Japan-India Mixed Culture Commission was established to take care of the cultural relations. The Indian Cultural Center, it opened in the Embassy of India in September 2009, and it was later named as Vivekanand Cultural Center in 2000 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. Now in 2017, the declaration was done that 2017 will be the year of Japan-India friendly exchanges, and in June 2018, the 4th International Day of Yoga was celebrated at the Parliament of Japan, that is D8. Okay, and then Namaste India Tokyo and all these cultural activities do take place in Japan. Now, in conclusion, India lost a very important, you can say, a diplomat has been lost by the global scenario, but for India, it was a loss of a friend. And let's move on to our question. Shinzo Abe spearheaded the revision of ties between India and Japan. It will serve as a guiding principle for Indo-Japan relations in decades ahead. Discuss in 250 words. That's it. Thank you so much for watching.